The first step in setting up the dual boot is to download the Debian ISO image. I always prefer to download the Debian ISO image through torrent. My machine supports AMD architecture, so I will choose to download the AMD 64 ISO image through the torrent. The second step in dual boot setup is to write the downloaded ISO image to an external device like a USB drive. There are a couple of popular tools available to create a bootable medium. One such tool is Etcher, which is a simple and cross-platform. Download the Etcher executable file from the official site. You should see an Etcher interface similar to the image in the screen. Click Flash from File and choose the downloaded Debian ISO image. Click Select Target and choose the USB device. Click Flash to write the ISO image to the USB device. Before proceeding with the Debian installation for dual booting, there are certain essential steps that need to be completed on the Windows side. First is to verify the partition scheme. This video focuses on disks that utilize the GPT partition style. It is important to confirm that your disk is using this partition scheme. To identify the partition scheme of your disk in Windows, open PowerShell on your Windows system and execute the following command. From the output in the screen, you can see that the last section displays the disk partition type. In my case, the partition style is GPT. Second, check if Windows is using BIOS or UEFI. This video is specifically tailored for systems running in UEFI or Unified Extensible Firmware Interface mode. Ensure that your machine is configured to run in UEFI mode for compatibility with the dual boot setup. To find whether your Windows system is using BIOS or UEFI, do the following steps. Look for the BIOS mode field in the system summary. If the BIOS mode is set to UEFI, it indicates that your system is using UEFI. If the BIOS mode is set to Legacy, it indicates that your system is using BIOS. As you can see in the screen, my system uses UEFI as BIOS mode. By default, Windows encrypts your drives for enhanced security. However, to prevent any potential conflicts during the dual boot setup, it is recommended to turn off drive encryption. To do so, open the Settings menu, search for Device Encryption, and then click on Turn Off to disable the encryption. Windows will now start the process of decrypting the existing files. Please note that the duration of this process will vary depending on the size of your data. Fourth is to disable Secure Boot. Installing Debian with Secure Boot enabled typically does not cause any issues. However, there are certain scenarios where Secure Boot may not function smoothly. To disable Secure Boot and restart your machine in UEFI mode, follow these steps. Under the Recovery options, click on Restart Now and Advanced Startup. In the Advanced Startup options, select Troubleshoot. Next, choose Advanced Options. And then select UEFI Firmware Settings. Click on Restart to enter the UEFI or BIOS settings. Once your system restarts, you will be directed to the UEFI or BIOS settings. It's important to note that the appearance and layout of the BIOS or UEFI window can vary depending on the manufacturer of your desktop or laptop. In the case of Dell laptops, you can typically find the option to enable or disable Secure Boot under the Boot Configurations section. To disable Secure Boot, toggle the switch to the off position. Confirm the action by selecting Yes to disable Secure Boot and save the profile. Lastly, press the Exit button to restart the machine, applying the saved settings. You can also check the state of the Secure Boot from within Windows. To verify the status of Secure Boot from within Windows, open the Run dialog by pressing the Windows key R. Type MSInfo32 in the dialog box and hit Enter. In the System Information window that appears, search for the Secure Boot State entry. If the state shows as off, it indicates that Secure Boot is currently disabled on your system. In this step, we will proceed with creating a dedicated partition for the installation of Debian 12 Linux. To begin, access the Disk Management utility from the Start menu. In the Disk Management window, locate the C drive which represents your primary Windows partition. Right-click on the C drive and select the Shrink Volume option from the context menu. Enter the desired size for the new partition in megabytes. Make sure to allocate enough space for the Linux installation. Click on the Shrink button to initiate the shrinking process. It may take a few moments to complete. Once the process finishes, you will see a new section labeled Unallocated Space in the Disk Management utility. This space has been successfully reclaimed from the C drive and is now available for creating the new partition. Connect the USB device containing the Debian ISO image to your computer and restart your machine to initiate the boot process. During the boot sequence, press the bootloader shortcut key. The specific key varies depending on the manufacturer of your computer. Commonly used keys include F12, F9, Escape, or Delete. Refer to your computer's documentation or look for on-screen prompts to determine the correct key for accessing the boot menu. Once the boot menu appears, navigate through the options using the arrow keys on your keyboard. Select the USB device that contains the Debian ISO image. The Debian installer menu will be displayed. You have different installation options like graphical install or text-based install. I go with the first option, graphical install. In this step, select the language which will be used throughout the installation process and click Continue. Select the location which will automatically set the time zone for the installation. Select the keyboard layout that matches your physical keyboard. Click Continue to go to the next step. In this step, you need to set up the root user password. Make sure a strong password is chosen. In this step, you need to enter the user's full name. In this step, give the username and a user account will be created with this name. This user can be used for all non-administrative activities. In this step, give the password for the user account created in the previous step. Make sure the root password and user password are not identical. This is to make sure the root user password remains safe if even the user password is compromised. In this step, you need to partition the disk post which the Debian base will be installed. You have 5 options to choose from as shown in the screen. The highlighted options are suited for dual booting and the remaining options will completely wipe out existing Windows partitions and install Debian 12. So you should be a little bit careful while selecting the suitable option for dual boot Debian. Choose the first option, guided, use the largest continuous free space and click Continue. In the next window, you will be prompted with 3 options. I choose to go with the second option, which will just create a separate home partition. In the next window, you will get the newly created partition information. As you can see from the screen, the installer automatically created a home partition along with the root and swap partition. If you look at the space allocation, the majority of the space is allocated to /home partition. To write the changes to the disk, choose Finish Partitioning and write changes to disk. It will prompt you with confirmation to write the changes to the disk. Choose Yes and click Continue. In this step, you will get an option to participate in the package survey. If you choose Yes, the operating system will anonymously send statistics about the list of packages used to the developers. I choose No and click Continue to move to the next step. In this section, you will choose the preferred desktop environment and other utilities that are required. I am choosing XFCE and Standard System Utilities. The installer will install all the selected packages. Once the installation is completed, click Continue, which will automatically restart the machine. Post-reboot, you will be taken to the grub screen where you can choose between Windows and Debian operating system. Log in with the non-administrative account you created during the installation. Welcome to Debian 12 with XFCE desktop environment. You can log into Windows once to see if everything works fine on the Windows side.